sir. Mr. Wall, you may continue.
Thank you. Before we broke for lunch, we were discussing Donna Cat. So, just to backtrack a little bit, what date did you receive a phone call from Donna Cat?
It was the 19th.
Of September?
September 19th, 1990.
You were at the station working when that call came in?
Yes.
About what time did that call come in?
Approximately 10:06 p.m.
On September 19th, in regards to the investigation, and something happened that day?
Yes.
And what?
Liggins' vehicle was towed, or we followed the Pujo over to the Hillside apartment, or Hillside Inn, and then interviewed Liggins there, and the vehicle was towed, the Pujo was towed back to the police department.
So on the 19th, Mr. Liggins' maroon Pujo was towed from the Hillside Inn.
That's correct.
And you know, was that publicized on media?
There was media that saw it being loaded onto the back of the flatbed.
And did that make it on the news then?
Yes.
The 10 o'clock evening news on the 19th?
Yes.
And was Atkins' phone call after the news?
Yes.
Did you assign a detective to speak with Miss Atkins then?
Yes.
And who was that?
Detective Lindbaum.
Was Mr. Liggins' Pujo moved back to the Hillside area then?
At a later date, yes.
And was that pursuant to the phone call with Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
And where was it moved to?
Hillside Apartments.
We've used the term both Hillside Inn and Hillside Apartments, so I'm going to refer you to State's Exhibit 5. Can you show us what you're talking about when you refer to Hillside Inn?
Hillside Inn is this section right here.
And you've already testified that's where Mr. Liggins was residing.
Yes.
And where are the Hillside Apartments? Was there a specific apartment in Hillside Apartments that was of interest?
Yes.
And which one is that?
Apartment 1.
To show you states what's been marked as for identification of States Exhibit 104, you recognize what's depicted in States 104.
Yes, this is a photo of the far west end of the Hillside Apartments.
And does that accurately depict the apartment 1 in Hillside Apartments?
Yes, you can see it on the door.
This time I move to admit States Exhibit 104.
No objection, Your Honor.
104 is submitted.
And again, then what we're looking at to compare States Exhibit 104 to 5 is we're looking, 104 is this area right here.
That is correct.
You testified to one of your duties and in your career as a police officer was accident investigation.
Yes.
In connection with that, are you familiar with the visual distance associated with low beams versus high beam lights?
Yes.
And what is the distance, the sight distance for low beam headlights?
National standards are 100 feet for low beams and 350 feet for high beams.
Thank you, I have no further questions.
May I cross-examine?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we'll be using some exhibits instead of accidents. I just have to leave the first one.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes. This one.
Okay. Just to start getting my orientation right, this Exhibit 202 was the map of kind of an overview of Moline, Bettendorf, and Davenport, is that correct?
Yes, of course, yes.
Okay. And the area north on that map, it identifies landmarks, is that right, or some?
Yes.
Okay, and it looks like St. Ambrose University, or St. Andrews College or University is around that area, is that right? St. Ambrose University?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that's sort of in the general vicinity of where Jefferson School might be at?
It would be just a little bit north and to the east.
Thank you. Sir, that's on the screen is Exhibit 63. Do you still have that laser pointer available to use? And can you point then to the area by Jefferson School that the body was found?
Off of this map, it will go down in that area right there.
And it's my understanding from your earlier testimony that that's a representation of how that area looked back in September of 1990, is that right?
Yes.
And then just to the north of where the body was, it appears to be some bushes and a couple of small trees, is that correct?
That area there?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And then further north, or the street to the left there, this runs north-south, is that Myrtle, is that correct?
Myrtle Street is this north-south street.
Okay, and 12th Street is which?
This is right there.
Okay. Now, ultimately, 12th Street turns into Vine, correct?
Yes. And it's coming.
Okay. And does Vine pick up again across that field further to the north?
Yes. I'm sorry, sir.
Does Vine, the street, Vine Street, it stops, obviously 12 turns into Vine, correct?
Yes.
So if you were though to imagine taking a extending vine further north through that curve towards 13th, are you with me?
Yes,
Okay, then vine begins again up there, correct?
that's correct.
And that would be a 1300 block of vine, correct?
Yes,
Did anybody, I know that I believe Mr. Kern measured distances or maybe provided a grid at the scene as to where items were found. Is that right?
I'm not aware of that.
Let me ask you this. When you pick something up, when you find something you believe is evidence at the scene, you take a picture of it. Right?
Yes, sir.
Because it's important that you want to be able to represent to the jury or to any other eyes how it appeared when you saw it.
Yes,
Not disturbed, not moved, how it appeared when you saw it.
correct.
And then, when you remove it, one of the things you want to be able to do is to identify where it was removed from, correct?
Yes,
And so one of the processes that Mr. Kern would have done would have been to have it establish a reference point and then measure distances to determine where items would pick up.
that's correct.
So it may not be a grid. The idea is that there's a reference point so you know where on a map, geographically, an item was picked up.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know if anybody measured the distances in between 12th and 13th Street?
No, I do not.
Okay. So the distance and measure is really related just to the crime scene. That we know, that was done.
That I'm aware of.
Okay. You testified that Mr. Kern is a thorough investigator.
Yes,
Been doing it a long time.
yes,
As a matter of fact, he's no longer with Stanley now. Is he?
no, he's not.
What is he working for now?
GCI.
So the Department of Criminal Investigation, the people that really specialize in investigating different aspects of crime scenes.
Yes,
And he had that level of expertise, or a certain level of expertise even back then. You've been doing it a while, right?
that's correct.
Now let me ask about the people that, the undercover officers that came up and talked to you and informed you that Rock Island also had a missing persons report. Remember those individuals?
Yes,
And they were undercover, were they working for the vice unit, or were they working narcotics, that sort of thing?
yes,
And that is actually something that you better have, correct?
yes,
As a matter of fact, my understanding, you might have traveled to be trained in how to become an expert in going undercover, is that right?
yes,
And part of the thing that when you're undercover is that you're really living a fiction amongst the community so that your identity as a police officer isn't revealed, correct?
well, that's deep undercover.
Okay. But you don't want to reveal your identity.
No,
Not as a police officer.
no,
Now, Exhibit 58, Walt, Exhibit 58. There we go. This picture was taken, when was this, the next day? The 18th?
yes,
Okay, so you were working through the night. The scene was not maybe completely processed, you came through, you did the walk through shoulder to shoulder, is that right?
the next morning, yes.
Now, it looks to me as if there is a sheen to that road. Do you see that? Let me ask you this. Did it rain the night before?
It rained that morning.
It rained that morning.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and in part, that's why you want to cover the area where the body was found with the tarp, is not only to preserve the evidence from elements, you want to preserve it from wind, you want to preserve it from rain.
That's correct.
Okay, and there's no question that there was precipitation that morning, and that would have been the 18th of September, 1990.
That's correct.
And do you know what time the rain left the area, or did it continue to rain that day?
No, I do not.
But you do know that it rained that morning.
Yes,
Was that picture taken in the morning or the afternoon?
I'm not aware of the time of statement.
Now, the staging area that you were talking about at the north up there, which I believe is at the intersection of Myrtle and 12th Street, is that correct?
Yes.
I see a white van there that's presumably law enforcement. There are plenty of other vehicles in the picture. Can you see those?
Yes.
Okay. Are all of those associated with the investigation, or were some residents parked there, maybe because they're blocked up in the area?
I wouldn't know.
Okay, so you wouldn't be able to identify the drivers of those cars today?
No.
This was a major case, correct?
Yes.
There is no doubt that at least in the Quad Cities area and in Davenport, that there were a lot of eyes focused on what was learned to be an extremely horrific crime. Fair?
Yes.
And ultimately, then, the responsibility is on law enforcement to do their job and hopefully find whoever was responsible. Fair?
Yes.
More importantly, as an investigator and all the experience that you've already outlined for the jury, the idea is to collect evidence or anything that might be pertinent to a case or to issues related to the possibility of crime. And not dismiss evidence necessarily on their own. Fair?
Yes.
And the idea is, it's all, and assume you testified at many trials. Have you testified at many trials?
Yes.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you've provided quite a bit of testimony over these many years with this case, correct?
Yes.
And I understand as well that you assisted with the county attorney, and this is not unusual, with lining up witnesses and how this case was tried. Fair?
Yes.
And during the 1993 and the 1995 trial, Eddie Zapian didn't testify, did he?
Not that I'm aware of, I don't think so.
You weren't aware of Eddie Zapian until after those trials, were you?
I was aware of Eddie's 18.
Were you aware of the reports produced by the FBI before either one of those two trials?
No.
A couple of things as it relates to the investigation. The idea that you just want to find the truth where the chips fall. Would that be your goal?
Yes.
And part of that, when you're investigating where you have people interview individuals, you don't want to suggest answers to them either.
No.
You want to let them tell you what they know, not try to direct what they're saying. Fair?
Yes.
Otherwise, it could taint the investigation or taint their testimony to make it look like law enforcement was improperly influencing these people. Fair?
Yes.
Now today, we have the benefit of video everywhere and body cameras. And so it's not unusual today, I assume, for officers to interview key witnesses by themselves.
It's not unusual for any time to interview any witnesses by themselves.
Often when you have a key witness, you would want a couple of officers there, correct? During the interview.
Not necessarily. I mean, during a canvas or something, you're not going to have two people that go in every door. You're going to split those individuals up. Maybe if they have information that seems to be something viable that you can go on, you may have two officers do that. Yes.
Right. No, I understand that. The initial investigation, the canvas, knocking on doors, saying, hey, do you know anything? And if 9 out of the 10 people say, I don't know anything, you don't really need two officers there for that, do you?
Right.
But if they say, I know something, and then they become somebody that may be important, when you bring them down to the station, the normal procedure was to have at least two officers in there for the interview, correct?
Not necessarily. It depends on how the investigation's going on.
It's better practice to have a couple in there, correct?
If you have the manpower to do that, it's great. Sometimes you don't have it. Like in this case, we have a lot of territory to recover.
And the reason you do that is to avoid the idea that at least you have two people confirming what they're saying and what they said is opposed to just one, right? Which is better than just one.
Yes.
When Antonio Holmes was interviewed, there was more than one individual in the room, right?
I'm not aware of how many.
Mr. Liggins, there was more than one person in the room.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, we were evidently listening in, correct?
Right.
You were responsible for the press releases that were provided, or media releases that were provided to the press with this investigation, correct?
Yes.
Nobody was leaking information to the press. If it went to the press as an official statement from the Davenport Police Department or this dual investigation that came from you.
Yes.
And would you agree with me that it's important when you don't know what is important in the case, the early stages, you don't know what facts are important, that you want to encourage people to provide information, but you don't want to skew what information they might think is important. Fair?
Yes.
Within a day of the investigation, you don't know what's important yet, do you?
We get pretty close at that point because we had most of the area territory covered.
You don't know it's a sexual assault. Yeah.
Yes.
At that first day?
The autopsy was completed at 3:30 in the morning, just 9 hours or 6 hours afterwards, and I was briefed on it.
Okay. Who did you brief about that?
Who did I brief?
Yeah. So when did you learn about the autopsy?
Somewhere between 3 and about 7 o'clock in the morning.
On the 18th.
Yes.
Okay. So nobody would have had that information other than the medical examiner on the 17th when they're talking to the Glens or when they're talking to any other witnesses, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
And nobody would have had an information, at least public, to the public, that Mr. Liggins' vehicle was somehow important to your investigation.
Can you repeat that?
Probably not. It's a horrible question. Okay. Let's start with this. The first press release, which I believe was on the 18th of September. Do you have a memory about that?
No, I don't.
Would the process be to type up a form called a news release, and then that would be what it was sent to the media?
The one you're referring to, I'd have to look at it, but I think the very first one I didn't do. I think that came from the chief's office.
Memory, you don't have to read anything out loud or anything like that, but everybody can do, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it's 2 all news media, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you describe, not particularly detailed, but at least who the victim was, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that the fire department was called around the addresses related to Jefferson School, fair?
Yes.
Okay, but you didn't disclose any other details about the case to me at that point.
No.
As a matter of fact, in that media release, you cautioned that we're not going to give you any details because you want to preserve the integrity of the investigation, correct?
Yes.
Preserve the integrity of the investigation. Again, because it goes towards the idea that if you start funneling details out there, it can skew testimony. People can start volunteering things that maybe aren't the real knowledge, correct? Because people want to help, right?
Yes.
People react in a way to a crime like this as, oh my gosh, it was so horrible, what can I do to help? And sometimes that can lead testimony and statements that aren't accurate.
Fair and objective is speculation. This is witness to speculate what other people would have thought.
Key to answer for those.
Repeat the question, please.
People want to help, and sometimes they will say things that maybe are not true to try to help because of what they think might help the investigation.
It's a possibility.
You've been doing this a lot of years, that happens, doesn't it?
Yes.
And that's why when you send out a press release like that, you make a statement that you want to preserve the integrity of the investigation. You don't want to commit to any facts because you're just trying to gather everything that may well be important, correct?
Yes.
And then when it's gathered and everything's important, you might bring some charges down the road, you might pick somebody to charge, but ultimately the test of everything that you gather is for a jury to decide, correct?
That's correct.
So you don't want to run the risk of discounting evidence or discounting leads or discounting statements from other people at the risk that you might be have tunnel vision on who did it, correct?
Yes.
So then, you had a press conference on Thursday of that week. Paul? If I showed you a couple of news clippings, would that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
Again, just take a peek in those two blue lines.
I'm not aware of that second one at all.
Okay. So if information got out that said that the police were looking for help to identify a small red four-door vehicle, that didn't come from you? Do you have any idea who it may have come from? There's a quote just above that, it's attributed to you. Let me approach again.
Yes.
Okay. And in that quote, in the same ask for help,
In the same way?
ask for help. You say that we have an individual we're looking at very strongly, we have not charged this individual, this is an open case, correct?
Yes.
And yet somehow, from your investigation, the police department, Rock Island, FBI, I don't know, the public's being told in a published article, look for a red car, correct?
Yes.
They're not being told, look for a green car, they're not being told, look for a truck, look for a red car.
That's correct.
And that's the same time that you're quoted as saying, we don't know who it is, and this is still an open investigation.
That's correct.
Something like that getting out, while this investigation is still open, would certainly have an impact on the integrity of the investigation, correct?
Not necessarily.
Who provided the picture that's in there? Did you provide the picture of Mr., or the name of Mr. Liggins as somebody you were looking at?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Just bear with me here, sir. It's not a particularly good copy, but the article that's got your quote, the quote attributed to you, has a picture of Mr. Liggins with his name under it, with a caption above it that says question. Do you know how his name associated with this interview got to the press?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'd like to look at it.
Yes, please.
I don't know.
Do you have any reason?
I can see that.
Oh, I'm sorry. When did this applicant give you a call again?
Wednesday, the 19th, about 10 p.m., 2200.
All right, so all we know out of that is that somehow, not something that you were controlling, Mr. Liggins' name, image, and the idea to look for a red 4-door car made it to the newspaper, correct?
Yes.
Before the investigation was closed. Correct?
That's what you're indicating, yes.
Yes, well, and when did, this was an ongoing investigation, wasn't it?
Yes.
I mean, there was one time that week, the next week, the next week, into October, correct?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, there's been some investigative work done over the years, correct?
Yes.
You have different people and leads and things like that coming at different times. It may not even have been 1990, correct?
That's correct.
So it's your job as the lead detective on this. All reports were supposed to funnel to you, correct?
Yes.
And part of that reporting process meant, it's easy for you to get a hold of Davenport. Rock Island was a little bit different, and the FBI evidently took a bit different, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you weren't the chief at the time of Davenport,
Correct.
and presumably you had people in Rock Island that people rank or grade rank in their police department that existed, correct?
Yes.
But you were the one assigned to do the work in this. It wasn't uncommon back then, or probably even today, for the police departments having to work together, right?
Correct.
Now, it is different jurisdictions. Not only is it different cities, that's a different state over there. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so, it's not like an Iowa police officer can be going over to Illinois and setting up a speed trap, fair?
Correct.
Your jurisdiction and where you can operate is supposed to be in Iowa, fair? And that's why it's important that law enforcement, if they're going to be in another state, communicate with the local agency, their presence, so that they can work with them and essentially have the blessing of that local agency, fair?
I'm not sure what you're getting at.
You contact the local law enforcement who plans going over there before you go over there to do police work, fair?
If you're going to go over there to interview somebody or do something in their jurisdiction as a courtesy, you would contact that department.
And it wouldn't be unusual to go over there and do something alone without contacting Rock Island first?
No.
Just have it all the time?
Yes.
In addition to yourself, were you aware of any other officers in this investigation that went over to Rock Island alone without communicating with Rock Island or the Davenport Police Department that they were going over to Rock Island to investigate?
I can't think of one at this point, no.
Mr. Kern did it?
Kern would not be one that we go over right now.
Mr. Huss?
He might,
Go over there alone?
yes.
It wouldn't be that unusual to not call Rock Island?
If he was not going to do or interview someone at that point, then we would really do that is if we were going to go interview somebody and it's a courtesy to their state. It doesn't say that we can't do it. Actually, our undercover officers go over there all the time, following people and so forth, and they have it a lot. That's why we monitor those other jurisdictions so that if we need to contact them right away because of something, they have that capability.
What's it mean to clear the apartments or clear Hillside?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I believe that when we went over there with the garbage bag, you were saying you hadn't yet cleared everybody there.
It's like you canvas or anything like that. Canvas the neighborhood, you knock on the door, nobody answers, you haven't got all that, you haven't completed it or cleared that canvas. So we have not been able to talk to the roofers or their vehicles and our canvas there, and that's why I went on.
So you went there specifically to talk to somebody?
No, we're going to look in their vehicles.
The canvas is talking to people, you knock on the door, you go down and talk to individuals to see if they know anything. That's what a canvas is, isn't it?
Not necessarily. This was, we just identified this bag. Okay, we wanted to see if they had silver bags in the back of their vehicle, which they did not, then we would have probably knocked on the door. And again, I did do exactly what I did. When I found the silver bag, whether I found it in their truck or I found it in the alcove, I would have contacted Rock Island Police Department, which I did.
Didn't you want to talk to those people if they see anything unusual out there? You need to talk to somebody, didn't you?
If we needed to, we could go back and do that, yes.
So clearing it means talking to individuals and making sure that there wasn't anybody out there that could provide additional evidence, right?
I'm not sure what you're saying at the end.
Well, your testimony here today, that part of the reason, or the reason, that you went over the Hillside alone in Rock Island, is because you had not cleared the Hillside in, correct?
Primarily that roofing company, yes.
And so when you got there, their trucks were there. There were trucks there.
Yes.
Do you know if they were all the trucks you were looking for?
No.
Did you knock on doors to see if they were there? Because I understood you had difficulty catching them there because they took off for work early. Knock on doors.
Not at midnight at night.
Not at midnight at night on an investigation like that, that's to stop you from knocking on doors.
I've always done that. And even canvass in the neighborhood, just for the sake of the people in that neighborhood, we don't knock on doors. It's usually after 10 o'clock at night.
Do you leave cards or do something like that for them to contact you in the morning?
No, and that's why almost every press release that goes out, I don't care what kind of case it is, every press release goes out to ask for anybody with information to contact people.
Sometimes information about a red car or Stanley Liggins, correct?
That was not released by our
So I'm going to show you Exhibit 61. That look familiar to you?
Yes,
Okay. And what is that?
that's a Glen residence in Rock Island.
And in that picture, that's a straight on shot of it. In that picture, there's a driveway to the left, correct?
Yes,
And there's also a driveway on the right side of that house.
yes,
Do you know who that driveway belonged to?
no,
Did you learn during the course of your investigation that driveway would provide access to the backyard of the buildings?
no,
Was the assumption that if somebody parked in the driveway, the left-hand side of the Glens, the one that's associated with the property, that would preclude anybody from leaving that yard?
I'm going to speculate on that.
Was the assumption during your investigation that if you were parked in the back and somebody parked in that driveway, the left-hand side, you had no access to the backyard?
I'm not aware of it.
You had no information during the course of this investigation that the driveway on the right-hand side that belonged to that other property actually gave you access to the Glenn's backyard?
Wait, can you repeat that, sorry?
I will try. How about I rephrase it? You had no information during this investigation that you could actually access the Glen backyard from that driveway, the one on the right-hand side.
I'm just going to ask for clarification, because you're referring to Chief Schaeffer himself or the entire investigation?
You had no information from the investigation, sir, that you could access the backyard of the Liggins from that driveway, correct?
I had no information.
And that was based on the fact that all these reports come in and you kind of keep tabs on what's going on.
Yes.
And in the course of the investigation, you know if there was even somebody occupying the house to the immediate right of the Liggins.
I'm not aware of who was in the that house.
Wouldn't that be something you want to come across in the campus?
I'm sure it was.
And if that was abandoned, wouldn't that be something you want to look into to see if there's any evidentiary value in that home right next to the fence?
Yes.
A crime scene, especially in a murder case, isn't necessarily limited where the body's found, correct?
I'm not sure what you're getting to.
That's not the only place that you might find evidence where the body is found.
Right.
And when you're dealing in a case like this where there was a sexual assault, that may well have happened in a home. The sexual assault may well have happened in a home.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Yes.
And it may well have happened in an apartment. Do you agree?
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, in order to secret away the fact that that crime was happening, it would be more likely that it would happen there than, say, in a car or something like that, correct?
Good speculation.
Yes.
Yes.
And part of the sexual assault investigation, and I'm assuming over the years, you know it's important to gather clothing, to gather sheets, to look at carpet, to look at bathrooms, to look at anything in the house that might indicate that the sexual assault took place there, correct?
Yes.
While I understand that DNA may not be involved, there are still ways to test fluids, there are still ways to compare hairs. It certainly was possible to determine if there was a presence of blood, correct?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, the investigation that was at your direction clearly went over with a fine-tooth comb that Peugeot, correct?
Yes.
And clearly went over with a fine-tooth comb the Hillside Inn apartment of Mr. Liggins, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But those aren't the only possible crime scenes in this case, correct?
That's correct.
When you're dealing with the sexual assault of a child, one of the first things that you, as an investigator, would look at would be the family in the home, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There were search warrants that were issued in this case, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And people consented to a search.
Yes.
Right. There are what are known as visual searches. I know that we kind of go into a room and take a look about, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a more detailed search where you're flipping everything up, you're pulling drawers, you can bring in a light to see if there's a presence of semen or blood, that sort of thing to scour a room, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what Mr. Kerr would do. Fair?
Yes.
Mr. Kerr was a guy that would have that attention to detail that would maybe try to find or could find traces of evidence from that type of investigation or search of a room or car, that sort of thing. Correct?
Yes.
And you did it in this case. You did it with Mr. Liggins' vehicle. Did you do it with any other vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, what vehicle was that?
It was in a Chevy that we had brought into the station prior to the Liggins vehicle.
You know who's that was?
No.
Was that an effort made on the Trans Am that was in the back?
Yes.
Okay, so that was also done over the fine-tooth comb, so that'd be something that I could talk to Mr. Kerr.
Or Rock Island provided evidence to kind of similar role as Lieutenant Kern, and her name was Mary Devine.
Was the land residence ever this level of detail that Mr. Kern will bring?
No, it was searched, I don't know, in the manner that you're saying. No.
And the search would have been conducted by Bruce Johnson, right?
I don't know where we would have done that.
And the search, if any happened, if it happened before it was known that this was a sexual assault, it would be difficult to know what was relevant evidence at their house, wouldn't it?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that normally with the search of that detail, it takes more than one person?
Yes.
Because not only do you have the people that are looking for relevant evidence, but generally speaking, you'll have somebody there to log whatever evidence is found, correct?
Not necessarily log. If someone located something that would first be photographed, and that would be current that, and then confiscated once you identified it, and then that person found it would confiscate it and fill out an evidence tag.
Correct. That's what I meant by logging. The evidence tag is you keep a record of all this stuff.
Yes.
Okay. And that was never done at the joint residence.
Not to gain my knowledge, no.
Okay, and something like that you would be aware of because the reporting gives you, correct?
Yes.
And you never asked that it be searched in that manner, did you?
No.
And obviously, the key time for those types of searches would be as close in time to the crime as possible, because you want to avoid people destroying evidence, correct?
Yes.
And also because evidence can expire. In other words, dry up or get swept away. Time and the elements can remove evidence as well, correct?
It's a possibility.
And so those types of searches you want to do as close in time to that the crime being known to avoid those issues, right?
Yes.
So if we went back today, looking around in the household, to do that, it would be impossible in kind of meetings, right?
Yes.
Let's move to Eddie Zapier. Now, it's my understanding that the testimony was that Mr. Zapier was excluded as a possible individual responsible for this crime, correct?
Yes.
And the reason that you excluded him is because of the report from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, correct?
No.
We did not know of the report from the FBI until after the 2 trials occurred.
Correct.
And although you knew of an ODZ from the assuming Liggins, did you know his last name at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm assuming that since you're directing the investigation, that you were the one that directed the FBI to go and talk to Mr. David.
Yes.
That's what you're dividing up the responsibilities.
Correct.
And because you directed the FBI to talk to Mr. Zapian, no one else was directed to talk to Mr. Zapian, correct? They had their job.
Correct.
And to your knowledge, even though that report was not provided to you before the 2 trials, did anybody else in your department or Rock Island Police Department or the FBI interview Mr. Zapian?
I'm not aware.
It stopped with that interview by the FBI, correct?
I'm not aware of anything else.
Okay. You would be since you ran the investigation, correct?
On that report?
No, any other reports.
No. And what I was told that in our 4-hour meetings, the FBI cleared him. And so it would not warrant more information.
Are you familiar with that report?
Not necessarily.
Okay. I'm going to ask you about it, and would it help if I just gave you an opportunity to look it over with you?
Sure.
It's
chance, time to read it, and let me know when you're done. You done?
Yes.
Okay. You can go on there, and I'll be able to have my own. Let me ask you about the importance of reporting. The idea to provide thorough reports is something that all law enforcement officers learn early on, oftentimes through law enforcement academy. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's and often ways the drudgery of the job is that you conduct part of an investigation, you do something with the case, and you have to write it down, correct?
Yes.
The FBI is no different than you, no different than Rock Island Police Department.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, it is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, so would you agree with me that they tend to be thorough?
Yes.
Okay. And so if it's included in the report, that's what they do.
I'm going to object to having this witness testify to what somebody else did.
Well, he can answer, he knows, he's talked about what he was told in these different meetings, so if he knows from that, he can certainly testify to that.
You read the question back, please.
You said, so if it's included in your report, that's what they did.
I'm not clear on your question.
Time, phase, memories, including those of law enforcement. Correct?
Yes.
One of the reasons to write a detailed report about your activities is because law enforcement has no idea when that information may be important. A year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, or 28 years from now. Correct?
That's correct.
So the training and experience of law enforcement officers is to write down what they did, who they spoke to, what they said, what they saw, with as much detail in that report. Fair?
Yes.
So that other individuals, including yourself, can rely upon the accuracy of that report. Agreed?
Yes.
The idea is, sir, that you're asking reports to be sent to you. You need to know that that's what happened so you can direct the investigation. You agree?
Yes.
And it would harm the investigation if the report was incomplete. Do you agree?
Yes.
And if there was a substantial amount of activity that was not provided in this report or any other report, that would affect the investigation. Do you agree?
Yes.
And not only may it affect the investigation, but you need it to be complete because you're making the decisions on who you're going to exclude. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay? And so when you rely upon this statement or this report from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, that's when you make the determination Mr. Dapian must be excluded.
Well, I'm going to object because he's testified his reliance was on the statement. He did not have the report.
The question referenced both statement and report.
Okay, that's accurate. You didn't have this report yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but presumably, without getting into what was said, that presumably when the FBI is reporting back to you, they're relying upon the contents of their report, correct?
Well, again, Your Honor, now we're speculating about what other people intended to do. Like either relying on the statement, which I believe is what he testified to, but he did not have this report at the time.
And your question, I think, references that, Mr. Hallbaker. Your question was without getting into what was said, presumably when the FBI is reporting back to you, they're relying upon the contents of their report. I think you can answer that in a different way.
I agree.
So that objection is sustained.
The report, do you remember when you finally came into possession of this report from the FBI?
No, I do not.
But the only thing is certain that you weren't aware of it before the 93 trial or the 95 trial.
Yes.
In this report, is there any reference to Mr. Davian being taken around to different residences?
No.
In this report, is there any reference to the investigators in this case riding around Mr. Davian and then talking to other individuals or names that he had given them?
In that report,
Yes.
not that I ever read.
In this report, is there, or and to your knowledge, was there ever a search warrant secured for either Mr. Davian's residence or for his car?
Not that I'm aware of.
And to your knowledge, was there any evidence removed by these agents from Mr. Davian's car or from his residence?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's not in the report, and you're not aware of that happening, correct?
Correct.
I mean, if there was evidence, let me ask you this, if there was evidence that was removed as a result of the search and placed in the custody, it would be law, like you said, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then ultimately there's a chain of custody and it ends up in an evidence locker or someplace that you could ensure that it's safe with law enforcement, fair?
Correct.
And so regardless of what the FBI did, you have no knowledge of there being any evidence collected, physical evidence collected for that he's agent,
Correct.
from his residence or from his car.
I have no knowledge.
And we're able to surmise from the report there was also another individual that was interviewed or with Mr. Zapian at the same time that the FBI was with.
Yes, I had knowledge of that.
Given the report, you were informed that there was another individual with Mr. Zapian. Page 2, paragraph 1 from the bottom.
Something a little bit better. Question I got was,
Given the report, you had knowledge that there was another individual spoken to at the same time that Zapian was spoken to, correct?
yes,
Okay, and that would have been his girlfriend, Stacy Damon.
yes,
And then given the report and what the FBI told you, you had information that there were phone calls from the Glen residents to the Zapian residents soon after the events of Jennifer's missing and that sort of thing happened, correct?
yes.
As a matter of fact, then was there any other interview or an independent interview or discussion with this statement?
Not that I'm aware of.
Certainly not before the 93 trial or before the 95 trial.
No.
Phone records were obtained,
Yes,
and did those phone records show phone calls from the Glen residents to the Zapian residents?
not that I'm aware of.
One of the things that you do in an investigation is you determine people's phone numbers, fair?
Yes,
And you want to know their address and their phone number. And the phone numbers can be important so that you can attach a name with the number. Agreed?
yes,
And as a matter of fact, with the phone records, they're a little more sophisticated today with cell phone technology and that sort of thing. But you may only have the evidence of an outgoing call, not necessarily the evidence of an incoming call, correct?
no, you just speculated in that, I'm not sure what you did.
Wasn't that part of this investigation, phone records?
Phone record was.
And the phone records records only make sense since they're just numbers, if you can attribute a name to those numbers. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay, and so if you had Mr. Zapian's phone number, I believe if you obtained from Ms. Clinton, correct?
You should say that one again.
You obtained Mr. Zapian's phone number from Ms. Clinton early on, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
And, but then you would also be able to identify on phone records the Glenn's phone as well, correct?
Yes.
So if you have the phone records of the Glen residents showing the phone calls to the phone number that Mr. Zapian identified, that would show the phone calls took place, correct?
I'm not aware, but those phone records were.
They were part of the investigation. And as a matter of fact, as part of that investigation, that first 24 hours, the idea that you want to see who Jennifer spoke to, if you have a line of phone calls, you had a number of phone calls that were made to different numbers, part of that investigation, you want to find out who was being called, correct?
When?
Immediately following this.
We would not have had those phone records for quite some time because of, you're indicating to me in the beginning of the investigation, we didn't have the phone records early in the investigation.
When did you get it?
I'm not aware of that.
Did you have somebody if you have knowledge that there were phone calls made from that house, and you believe that the FBI report is dated September 24th, 1990. You didn't do it till later, but did you have knowledge of the phone calls from the meetings?
Not necessarily the phone calls. We were pertaining to the individuals who were at the house and if those individuals were interviewed.
And so you had knowledge of Mr. Bigman back then?
Yes.
This is before these reports were disclosed to you?
Yes.
And did you direct anybody to go out and speak with Mr. Bigman about the phone calls?
No.
And do you know, as you sit here today, how long those phone calls were?
No.
All right. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to take our afternoon break. We'll start then around 3 o'clock, so please stay in your room. Keep your admonition in mind, and not discuss the case and continue to keep on time. Please rise for the